So Mike Bloomberg gave a speech tonight. To say that I'm not a fan of Mike Bloomberg is a gargantuan understatement. But he was a rare guy who hit Trump and who hit him hard. And it was like an old school convention speech. At good conventions, a certain number of speakers go out there and kick the other guy's ass. Like when you'll see with the Republicans, they'll do a clown show, but 3/4 of the speakers will tell you how horrible the Democrats are and how they're gonna destroy the country, etc. You could say, oh, well, that's not fair, it's demagoguing, it's fear, blah, blah, blah. Well, in the case of the Republicans, it's not fair because they're lying. In the case of Democrats, they'd actually be telling the truth if they bothered to say it. But most importantly, you gotta stand up for yourself. You gotta make the case for your guy, but also against the other guy. It's a two-person race. So Bloomberg did that. I mean, he mentioned Trump's 6 bankruptcies. Nobody ever does that. Remember, he's a terrible businessman, and he put him down and he put him down and he humiliated him. That's not just good because it's cathartic. It's good because you want those independents to lose respect for Donald Trump because they're because they're the one thing he's got to hang his hat on. Still, after 4 years of epic incompetence, Democrats could not drill this into people's head. They think, well, maybe I don't like him, and maybe he's too harsh, and I don't like the tweets. But we need a strong businessman in charge. No, that's not remotely true. So Bloomberg coming out there and taking a 2x4 to Trump's kneecaps and telling you what a loser he is actually politically important. And so I predicted right after the speech, as we were doing live play-by-play, that Trump would attack Bloomberg the most. Asher, our producer, sent me a tweet like 2 minutes later. Here's Donald Trump's tweet. After the worst debate performance in the history of politics, Michael Bloomberg, commonly known as Mini Mike, is trying to make a comeback by begging the Democrats for relevance. They treated him like a dog and always will. Before politics, he said great things about me. See, I knew it, because Mike Bloomberg is an actual successful businessman in New York where Trump had his home base, right? And he always wanted to be someone like Mike Bloomberg. Right or wrong, that was his ambition. And that was Bloomberg acting like a dad saying, you didn't make it, you're a loser. And we need someone who actually is competent and smart in a time of catastrophe, the catastrophe that you created. So I actually love this speech.
So look, Mike Bloomberg for me really crystallized how similar some so-called Democrats can be to Donald Trump. I mean, it is kind of incredible. Like, I get what you're saying about we need to attack Donald Trump where it hurts, especially considering how easily his ego gets bruised and how offended he gets when you mention his bankruptcies. But Mike Bloomberg is everything that we hate about Trump, just with, I guess, a politer face, a politer, type of rhetoric, except not really when you consider, some of the horrible things that he said to his, about women in the past. I mean, that's what Elizabeth Warren called him out for. Like what he does, in being the person, the lead into Biden's speech is show you and confront you with the fact that this whole event that tries to present itself as a higher bar, as better than Donald Trump, a better option than Donald Trump, it just kind of dismantles that, right? Because Mike Bloomberg has done horrible things. I mean, in that speech, he talks about, treating employees with respect. He didn't treat his employees with respect. I mean, look, I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially what he was referring to. Would you want to work for a boss who would only look out for his own best interests, even if it hurts the company, right? I mean, he was that boss. That's who Mike Bloomberg was. And he was called out for it by Elizabeth Warren on the debate stage. So I would have preferred if, maybe the DNC was a little more open-minded and allowed a strong progressive, let's say someone like Rashida Tlaib, to stand there and have the moral standing, to have a leg to stand on to make those kinds of arguments. But Mike Bloomberg doesn't have a leg to stand on. Homeboy exploited prison labor to do phone banking. So I know too much, Cenk. I know too much. Like if the bar is we need someone who's going to get under Trump's skin, that's a low bar. Anyone can get under Trump's skin.
But they didn't,
the fact that the Democrats chose Bloomberg to do it, I think is like pretty ridiculous. Well, let them grow the balls to do it, right? Like, why do you need Bloomberg to do it? I just think it's sad, and I wish he wasn't part of it at all. A guy who was a Republican like yesterday, coming out here talking about how he's better than Trump, please.
So look, Anna, on the substance of it, you're absolutely right. That's why I started with I don't like the guy, and it's a massive understatement for all the things you said and more. It was just horrible on stop and frisk. He was horrible in spying in on Muslims for no reason. And by the way, you're right also about the stereotypical way that Democrats still think about the country. So did they feature African Americans and minorities? Yes. And they'll 1,000 times more than the Republicans. And boy, one of the clarion calls from the convention was it was super obvious to anyone who's got experience in politics. They were basically, the whole convention was black folks, please vote, right? So they got that part for their own purposes. But would they let Rashida Tlaib speak instead of Mike Bloomberg? Inconceivable. They would say, no. They wouldn't say it, but they would think it. That's a Muslim woman. That's not gonna play well in middle America. Successful Republican Mike Bloomberg plays well in America. So that is the problem of the Democratic Party. About all that, you are right. But within this Democratic Party, led by this Democratic leadership, no, there are not a lot of people who could hit as hard as Mike Bloomberg. And so they all had an opportunity, like hundreds of them spoke, and 80% of them sucked, didn't say anything, and never hit Trump. So Bloomberg comes out and he said, look, he didn't say to run a company. He said, would you hire or rehire someone who totally screwed up on the job, who might have, I don't remember if he said stolen from you, but just like lit the place on fire. Of course you'd never rehire that schmuck. And somebody needed to say that. Oh, and by the way, I've heard that in business circles. It's a good, a person who's a mentor of mine said, hey, if you're ever thinking about an employee, just think, would you rehire them, right? And that's a perfect analogy for a presidential election as a guy's going for a second term. Why the hell would we want to rehire that schmuck? We caught a break. We can actually get the other guy. He's not the world's greatest employee, but way better than this guy. So I thought he made that point well. And then another point he made well was he said, look, contrast how they reacted to a crisis. So Obama and Biden pulled us out of that Great Recession, created all these jobs, and created an economy that's flourishing. Now there's asterisks to that, but overall that's how Americans view what Obama and Biden did. He reminded them of that. And then he said, look at how Trump reacted to this crisis in coronavirus. We're the world's worst country in dealing with it, the most cases, most deaths. He blew it because he's an idiot. And at one point, Bloomberg even said about Trump, what a joke. And somebody needed to say it. And I wish the party had progressives and the progressives that it does have, that it had enough faith in them to feature them, but that's not this current Democratic Party. So I'm glad at least somebody came out and kicked Trump's ass.
I think saying that he kicked Trump's ass is a bit strong. I mean, I remember watching the speech and thinking to myself, like, the delivery seems a little goofy and corny. Like every time he speaks, I think of Judge Judy, to be honest with you. But okay, I mean, it got under Trump's skin. So if that's the standard, cool. I just wish that they would have given, a strong progressive the opportunity to kick Trump's ass, because if they had given maybe even AOC longer than a minute to speak, maybe she'd have the opportunity to do that, but she didn't have that opportunity. They decided that maybe Mike Bloomberg should be allotted more time because who knows, maybe he's more representative of Democrats' values, even though he's really a Republican.
Well, on that note, we totally agree.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.